So as we journey together during this Lenten season, the church always provides us many ways to help one another to strengthen our relationship with the Lord and with one another through prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. And one of the things that our parish community can do for you is to have this kind of mini retreat, I would say, Parish Lenten mission. To help one another grow our love and faith in our heart, and to prepare our lives, our families during this Lenten season to prepare for the death and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. And this great opportunity for us today that I want to express my gratitude for Father Tim Labo. I introduce him to you today. He's my first pastor as a priest, and he's a wonderful man, and I can be who I am today because of Father Tim's leadership, his kindness, and his compassion. I learned many things from him, and I'm so thankful that we can get him this year for our Lenten retreat. So Father Tim, he recently retired in December. Before that, he held many positions in the diocese, being pastor at many different parishes throughout the diocese. He's assisted bishop in committees and councils, and helped many priests and parishes how we serve the people in the diocese. So we love to have Father Tim tonight, and he will be with us from tonight through Wednesday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. He will guide us. He will give us some things that we can pray about and discern for ourselves, for our community, for our family as we prepare for Lent and Easter. So once again, how about help me congratulate and welcome Father Tim to our community. Please.
Thank you, Father Joseph. You're very, very kind and a generous man. So I knew this guy when he was about 4 years old, so no, I'm kidding. And that was about 3 years ago. No, I'm kidding. Father Joseph and I, we go back, as he said. I've been in the diocese since God was a boy. So that's been a long time. If I'm retired, why am I here working? That's a good question. Because us priests really never retire. We just kind of retire ourselves, you see, keep going. So we retread is another way to say it, huh? So I was happy to accept the invitation to come to Leesburg. I don't know if some of you, I was here many years ago. How many of you have been here for a long time? Oh my goodness, okay. I used to be the diocesan director for HIV and AIDS ministry many years ago, from 1986 to about 1996, and went around to all the parishes in the diocese and spoke and did trainings on how to deal with HIV disease in our society and in our church. So I don't know if some of you were here in those days or not, but I've been around for a long time. So, you may think that I'm younger than I am. I'm actually 98. And the secret is oil of Olay. Not Nivea, so don't take Nivea. Do oil of Olay, okay? That's what does it. No, actually, I was ordained for the Diocese of Orlando in 1986. I came to Florida in 1977 to study marine biology. So I have my undergraduate degree in marine biology, believe it or not, and I studied echinoderms. How many of you know what echinoderms are? Okay. Aha, echinoderms are little critters that are starfish, things like that, sea cucumbers, sea urchins. That's what I studied. So I studied in the Banana and Indian River Lagoon system here on the east coast of Florida. And again, I went to Florida Institute of Technology for my degree, and I was an echinodermologist. I worked under a professor and did research in the Indian and Banana River systems. So then I went into the seminary, and I went into the seminary in the fall of 1981. So I graduated from college and immediately began to go into the seminary training. And so, Jesus called fishermen. And so he said, you're no longer going to be fishermen, you're going to be fishers of men, and women and children too. And so I was a marine biologist, and Jesus said, you're not going to be a marine biologist any longer, you're going to be one of those fishers of men, women, and children too. And so I received that call a little bit differently. I don't know how much Peter and Andrew and all those folks knew about marine biology, but anyway, it's the same call. So I took that call, and as I said, I entered the seminary in 1981. I was ordained in 1986. I went back to school for some further schooling and did some pontifical degrees in moral theology. So my specialization, the area is in moral theology, specifically in sexual ethics and also biomedical ethics. So that's my specialization in terms of theology. Then I went back to school after that, and in 1998 I began a doctoral program. So I had my PhD in education, and I was specializing in educational leadership, but with an emphasis on leadership studies. So I studied LMX. Any of you know what LMX is? Oh, Andrew knows in the back. He was with me for 7.5 years, so he knows. Leader-member exchange theory. It's a theory of leadership, and I studied that, and I also looked at emotional intelligence and how emotional intelligence added into or made leader-member exchange happen. So that was my doctoral dissertation. And I'm sure you're all thrilled and excited about all that, and you want to know more about it. So I decided to just skip the mission and just talk about that. I can see you're all going to get up and walk away very, very soon. Okay. So anyway, I received my doctorate in 2005 and continued certainly as a priest. I've been a priest all those years. This coming May, I will be ordained 40 years. 40 years. And I'm still standing. So this young man over here is just getting started. So, treat him well, take care of him, and you'll have him for 40 years at least. So I appreciate that, huh? So we're here tonight to look at Lent. If we just want to start out with Lent, what does Lent really mean for you? What do you, when you think about Lent, when you talk about Lent, when you look at the word Lent, what comes to your mind? Relive the Passion. Anything else? Sacrifice, yes. Separation? Oh, preparation, I'm sorry. Preparation, preparation, yes. Preparation for what? Yeah, we're preparing for the celebration of resurrection. How many of you believe in resurrection? Okay. Well, hopefully by the end of the 3 nights that we're together, I'm going to ask that question again because many of us perhaps don't even realize what resurrection really is. So I hope I'll get into some of that with you because I have a deeper sense, I believe that resurrection is far deeper than what we really realize. So that may be something of a challenge to say, how can I know more about resurrection? How can I really understand or fully embrace resurrection? So that's what we're here about. That's what Lent is all about, right? To prepare ourselves to embrace the resurrection of Jesus, but also to embrace our own resurrection. So I'm going to try the little, oh, there it is, it's up there. So the title that I was proposed or given was Eucharistic Revival, a deeper dive. There was no irony there. Remember, I'm a marine biologist, so I dove, and I have, how do you say I have diven? No, I have dove. I was a diver, and so not an irony there. So a deeper dive into the source and summit of our faith. So the Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith. So if we look at that, we say we center ourselves on Eucharist. That's what makes us Catholic. We focus ourselves on that which is the body and blood of Jesus Christ. We also say that the Eucharist is the summit. What does that mean, the summit? It is the top. Any mountain climbers here? So if you go on the top of a mountain, you go all the way up and you have to get to the top. When you reach that top and you look around, you see I am at the top. I am at the summit. I am at the very, very highest place I could be in terms of me being where I am. And so Eucharist is for us the summit of our faith. So just take those words, if you will, and just maybe think about them and pray with them and say, how is it that Eucharist is for me, or is it for me, the source of my faith, the source of my life, the source of my being? And am I really seeing myself at the summit? The summit. Am I really seeing myself at the top in terms of being with and sharing in and being a part of Eucharist? Okay, so that's very, very important in terms of what we're looking at. If we we want to revive Eucharist. It's interesting to me that the church says we need a Eucharistic revival. Why? What have we done about Eucharist? How have we seen Eucharist? What makes us have the need to suddenly now have a revival? If the Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith, then why do we need a revival? It's a little bit of an interesting twist, isn't it? Huh? So we're looking at saying, oh, I have to revive my sense of Eucharist. Well, if that's the source and summit of your faith, then it should be always, needs to be always, the center and the focus of everything that I do and everything that I am. So again, it's a bit of a twist there, so we'll go into that as we go through some of the things that we'll talk about in these days ahead. So this is going to build upon itself. We're going to start out very, very simple, or at the basics, and then move and form and deepen and take that dive into what we call the Eucharist for each and every one of us. Okay? So y'all ready? You have your seatbelts on? Okay. Let me see if they'll move. So I wanted to just share this slide with you. This is my mom and dad, a picture of my mom and dad. This was at their 60th wedding anniversary celebration. And both of them are now with God in heaven. They have both passed. They both died. But when I was going to become a priest, suddenly my mom and my dad had a story for me that I'd never heard ever before. So they told me about our doctor. He was from Italy. We lived in a very, very small rural town in Ohio. And he was from Italy originally, straight from Italy. Great doctor. He was a country doctor. Very simple guy, but a very knowledgeable guy. In those days, country doctors, they would give you horse liniment to help you get through things. I used to take sulfur pills when I had a sore throat because that's what they did. Things like that, very, very simple medicines, straightforward, but very powerful and effective. But anyway, this doctor was a very, very important part of my life. He was my doctor. He was the one who delivered me. So when I went to my mom and dad and I said, I want to be a priest, and suddenly my mom had this mouth gaping experience, and she said, I want to tell you a story that happened when you were born. I'd never heard this story before. So she said, you've never heard this. I'm going to tell you this. And I said, okay. So she said, Dr. Borelli, that's the doctor, Dr. Borelli, said to me when he put you on my stomach as you were born, my dad was there as well, he said, this is a very special baby. This is a very special baby. Now, I'm sure that, doctors say that to every mother and father who just had a baby delivered and say, yeah, this is a very special baby, because all babies are special. But he said to my mom and dad, he said, this little guy is going to become Pope. He said, one day, this little guy is going to become Pope. Now, I'd never heard that story. Here I am, I'm going to my mom and dad, saying to them that I want to be a priest, and I thought to myself, this is really cool. I have the fast track of going from being a priest all the way to becoming the Pope in just a matter of weeks, perhaps, because certainly this is a prophecy, and the prophecy has to be fulfilled, right? This is a fulfilling prophecy. So I was all excited. I said, wow, God has really spoken. God has really spoken. Well, here I am almost 40 years later, and I'm still waiting to be the Pope. So don't hold your breath. I will probably be waiting for a long time, and so will you if you wait for me to become the Pope. So just want to share that with you. That's an interesting piece of my background and my history. And of course, my mom and dad they laughed all the time when I would go back to them, and they would give me business about something, and I'd say, you better be careful. I'm going to be the Pope. So anyway, I got away with a few things on that line. But my mom and dad, again, I'm from Ohio. How many of you are from Ohio? All right. We have a lot of Ohioans. How many of you are from up in the Northeast? Aha. How many of you are from New York? Jersey. All right. Any other places? Vermont. Maine. Massachusetts. Connecticut. Illinois. New York. Yeah. You have a daughter? You have a daughter?
I have a daughter.
You have a daughter? Anybody else from a different place? Florida. Who's from Florida? You were, born here? You're kidding. Titusville. Oh my goodness. Wow. We don't have too many natives, you see. Oh my goodness. Eh? Yeah. So we are all from different places, most of us, except the one from Titusville, from Florida. We're all from different places, all from different backgrounds. Yes? From where? Brazil. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's way down the road there, yeah. Wonderful. Singapore. You were born in Singapore? Wow. Military or just, no? Okay, right. All right. Well, okay, you've been here for a long time. Yeah, thank God, huh? All right. So how many of you are military personnel or former military, served in the military? Okay. I did too. I served in the chaplain corps for the Navy and Marines. I did so for 10 years. So I can relate to some of those times. I had a Marine DI, a gunnery sergeant. Gunnery Sergeant Crawford, USMC. Yes, sir, yes, sir. And it was very interesting because I was an officer and he was enlisted, but I always called him sir. And he kept reminding me, don't call me sir, you're the sir, I'm the gunny. But I could say, yes, gunny, yes, sir, yes. But anyway, so just a little bit about me. I served in the military for 10 years. So I've been around, I've been around a long time and been around a lot of different things. But anyway, let's get into the Eucharist because that's why we're here. So when we think about Eucharist, let's think about this and really break it down. Very, very simple. Remind ourselves that Eucharist is what? The first, can you see that up there? Bread and wine. Okay? Bread and wine. Think about bread and think about wine. So how many of you are Eucharistic ministers? Oh, good, okay. And sometimes when I hear Eucharistic ministers looking at their assignments for the day or for the Mass, they say, I've heard some say, I'm a bread person. Or I'm a wine person today. I'm giving out the wine. And I'm the bad guy who stops them and says, no, you're not. Yeah, you're not giving out bread, and you're not giving out wine. So that language is very, very important. Our language many times betrays us. So do we really believe that the bread and wine that we see, or that we touch, or that we hold is really not bread and wine, but rather the body and blood of Jesus? So I start with that at the very, very basic, and we may say, oh yeah, Father, I know that. But many times we forget that it is not bread. It is not wine. It looks like bread, it tastes like wine, but it is not. It is not bread and wine. It is the body and blood of Jesus. So again, just a reminder, even us priests need that reminder, because sometimes we take it so for granted, we take it so ordinary. Bread and wine are so ordinary things. So think about that. What is the reason? Why would Jesus choose bread and wine and say to his apostles, take this, this is my body, this is my blood? Think about that. Why would Jesus do that? He could have done anything. He could have taken anything, but he took bread and wine. And he said, this is my body. This is my blood. The next one there is bread and wine come from the earth. They are, okay, bread comes from what? Wheat. Flour, okay. The wine comes from grapes. I used to take care of vineyards. I used to work for an orchard up in Ohio, and one of my jobs was to take care of a vineyard. And so I knew how to take care of the grapes and so forth. It was a wonderful way for me to really understand the scriptures when it comes to Jesus' imagery about the vine and the branches. Powerful, powerful. And the fruit, right? The fruit of the vine. Beautiful, beautiful for me to learn that at a very young age as I worked in that vineyard. Powerful. Those images are so alive for me because I lived them for 7 years. Taking care of that fruit, taking care of nurturing those grapes, growing those pieces of fruit. And also I lived on a farm area, and of course my dad and all of us, we did farming, and so we grew wheat. We had wheat around us. You could see the grains of the wheat. We had to take care of the wheat. So for me as a farm boy in rural Ohio, very, very beautiful imagery that Jesus uses. It brings me and connects me to the earth. And a very simple life, but a very powerful life, a very wonderful life, a life that said, out of the ground, the miracle of life happens. Does that sound familiar? Out of the ground, out of the earth comes life. Where do we hear that? Genesis. How did God create humanity? Adam and Eve. He created them out of the earth. He blew into that dust of that earth and gave life. So this is why it's very important to see these connections and to see the depths of these images and the words and the reality of Eucharist for us. Every time we look at the Eucharist or receive communion, we really need to look at, we are being recreated. God is breathing life within us once again. God is taking the earth, if you will, of ourselves and recreating us, making us anew from the earth. And we are like the wheat. We are to be like the grapes, the fruit. We are to give fruit or to share the fruit of the earth. We are to be the fruit of the earth. We are there to feed and nourish with our very selves. Isn't that what Jesus tells us? He says, I'm going to feed you so then you can feed one another. So, again, I'm not trying to make any of us feel guilty, but how many of us, when we leave church on Sunday, go out into the parking lot and say, oh, I'm here to serve and to feed my brothers and my sisters, not only here in the church, but also out in the community? How many times do we think of that's why we're leaving the church? We're not just going home to say, okay, well, church is over for the week, that's it, thanks be to God. It's only one day and I'm done, I'm ready to go. But no, I'm going now out into the world, out into the rest of the world, where people are, to nourish them. Am I nourishing? Am I giving life? Am I feeding other people? Am I sharing with them the nourishment that Jesus has given to me? It's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. But that's our calling. That's how Eucharist is for us. It's not just meant to nourish us. That's very selfish if that's the way we see it. And of course, Eucharist is not to be about selfishness. It's about being shared and shared with everyone. What about someone who's not even a Catholic? How do I nourish that person with Eucharist that I have received? How do I share with them who Jesus is in me? How do I feed them? How do I nourish them? How do I nurture them? How do I give the love and that which Jesus has given to me to others? No matter who they are. Let me tell you, it's a challenge. Being a pastor in a parish, it's a challenge with parishioners. Sometimes to be nourishing, because some of them are not nourishing to me. And sometimes it's a real challenge to be Christ for the sake of others. So these images and the words that we put and that we see here on the screen are not just words. Every one of these words has a deeper dive associated with it. Everything is much, much, much deeper. And we can go even deeper still. We're just at the surface. This is just the beginning. So let's look at the next one. We said simple items. Simple items. So how are we simple? How do we make our lives so complex? You know, we tend to complicate our own lives. We tend to complicate our own world. We make the world far more complicated than what it really is. It really is very simple, but we complicate it so much. Jesus made our lives very, very, very simple. He gave us one word. You know what it is? Love. That's it. It's very simple. So if we ask ourselves, am I loving? Am I loving? Do I love this other person? Do I love me? Am I loving God? Am I allowing myself to be loved? Do I really allow others to love me? That's life. That's the summation of everything. I could stop right here and say, okay, well, the next 2 days we don't need them because it's that simple. Love. And Jesus shows us and reminds us over and over and over and over and over and over again, and we still don't get it. We still don't get it. And we'll see why as we go along. But very simple. Life staples, as I said, bread. Everybody in the world, somehow, some way, uses some sort of a bread as a staple, as a sustenance, as something that gives them life and nourishment. From the very basic to the bottom. That's a very life-giving staple. And wine, for most of the world, is like, drinking lemonade or Kool-Aid or whatever. Wine has been in existence for years and years and years, centuries and centuries. Humanity has used wine, drank wine. It's a very basic, very pervasive kind of drink. And it's a part of our society. It's a part of our world. It's a part of our anthropology, if you will. I just read a science article the other day that said even, I think chimpanzees and things like that, even they drink or look at alcohol. They go to the fruit that's ripening, in the forest or whatever, and they go after the ones that are more ripened that have alcohol in them. Huh. So maybe that's something for us. I don't know. But anyway, it's a life staple. We talked about from seed and fruit. So again, we are full of seeds. Within us, God has planted seeds. In the book of Ecclesiastes, how many of you know Ecclesiastes? It's a wisdom book, right? In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says that God has placed into the hearts of man, or humans, his timelessness. Think about that. God has placed into the hearts of each one of us his timelessness, which means his eternity. God has placed within our hearts his eternity. Wow. We're already eternal because God has placed, and that timelessness, by the way, I say, is God's love. God's love is eternal. God's love has been placed within our hearts. So if we make an excuse, or try to make an excuse, that I don't have enough love for this person because I don't like them, and they're different than me, and they don't agree with me, and they're not in the same camp as I am, that's an excuse to say, guess what? I am not recognizing the love of God that is within my own heart. Does that make sense? So that's a challenge to all of us. We can love. We can love. We have that ability. We have God's love within us. If we can't tap and draw upon that love of God that is within us, then what are we about? God's love is within us. That's what Eucharist is. Jesus is within us, right? He's within our very hearts. He's within our very bodies, says St. Paul. We carry in our bodies, he says, the death of the Lord, and we carry in our very bodies the resurrection of the Lord and his eternal love. That's what Eucharist is for us at a very basic level. If we look at the next one, stalk and vine. Think about that. A wheat it's on a stalk, right? And the stalk is, as I said before, connected to the ground. It's nourished from the ground up. All the food nutrients from the soil goes up to those grains of wheat at the top. Same way with the grapevine, they grow from the ground, and the vines, they scatter out at the top. The fruit is at the top. That's another symbol and sign for us of what Eucharist is for us. Jesus, he says, I am the vine, and you are the branches. And I am nourishing you. I am giving you life from the very ground of God, from the very ground of love, from the very ground of existence, from the very ground of peace and harmony and compassion. I am feeding you so that you can nourish and give life to others. Powerful images, powerful way of looking at that. Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. You are to bear fruit. You are to bear the fruit of what I have given to you, of what I have nourished you with, what I have fed you with. Now go and share and nourish others. Am I making sense with that? Okay. So again, if we allow ourselves to think and to open our hearts and our minds to go a little bit deeper, not just what we see, not just what's on the surface, but go deeper and deeper and deeper. What does that mean for you? All these things that we've been talking about here. What does that mean for you? And what does it mean for me? And how do we put this into our daily lives? How do we practice this? How do we live this? How do we really become this? And we'll see more as we go along with what we're talking about here. Oops, I went backwards, huh? Oops. I have to go the other way, huh? Oops. Did I do something wrong? Oh, there it goes. Okay. So let's talk about a meal. Eucharist is a meal, is it not? We are gathered around what? Table. That's a table. No disrespect. It's the altar. Yes, I understand. But it's also a table, right? we gather around a common table. Think about when you have gathered around a table with other people. Think about some of those experiences. I remember growing up when I was a kid, in my day, when my mom said it was supper time, you had better get your butt to that table. And your face washed, and your hands washed, and you had better be there, and everybody in the family had to come to the table. Everybody. Okay? And we all had to sit and face each other. Remember that? How was it to face each other sometimes? Sometimes we didn't want to face each other. Sometimes we didn't want to be across from that person, my brother or my sister, or my mom or my dad. So we are talking about Eucharist as a meal in which we gather around a common table, and it's not just those people who are there, it is a table for all. For all people, says Jesus. He never, ever would deny anyone entrance to that table. Ever. Because it's his table. And he is the Lord. And he loves every person, no matter what. What do we do? Who do we invite to be around the table? Who do we include around the table? Who do we say we can have around the table, and who do we say we cannot have around the table? Just think about it. Sharing. Is that something that we lost somewhere along the way? Sharing? It seems like today nobody wants to share anything. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I think it's pretty clear that, this is mine and don't you touch it. Keep your hands off of it. But Eucharist is about sharing. Remember, we hopefully learned that in kindergarten. Hopefully we remembered that from kindergarten throughout our lives. But I think a lot of people have forgotten about sharing. We are people, we people of faith, we people of Christian faith, we people of Catholic faith, we are to be utmost people who share. Now, I'm going to give an example that's a common one. I don't know about here at St. Paul's in Leesburg, but in some of my parishes where I've been in the past 40 years, if someone was sitting right here and that was my seat, you better forget it. And I've had people say that in my very presence. That's my seat, get out of there. Okay, whoa. This is about sharing, is it not? Wow, do we share out in the parking lot? Do we share when someone cuts us off in traffic? Or we cut someone off in traffic? What do we share? What do we not share? What? The horn, yeah, the horn. There's a lot of horn sharing, that's for sure. Okay? So again, we as people of faith, following Jesus, if we are about Eucharist, then to live Eucharist means that we share what we have, what has been given to us. Remember, everything that we have has been given to us. Everything. I don't care how much we've worked. I don't care how hard we've worked. I don't care how intelligent we've been. I don't care how productive we've been at work. All that's nice and wonderful, but that has all been given to us by God. And it's really not ours to hoard. It's ours to share. I'm not just talking about physical things. I'm not just talking about money. I'm not just talking about cars and homes and things like that. How many of us hoard love? How many of us hoard mercy? How many of us hoard compassion? Care about someone. I can't believe we as a society today have such a difficult time caring for other people. We just don't care. It's like, who cares? Not my problem. Nobody seems to have that caring, not nobody, but I mean many people, I should say. We don't seem to have that sense of caring, compassion. Are we willing to listen to another person's story? I can't tell you how many people have judged other people because they didn't know their story. Let me tell you a little story that happened to me. This was years ago when I was at St. Margaret Mary in Winter Park. How many of you know where St. Margaret Mary is in Winter Park? Okay. I was there for 5 years. That was my first assignment as a young priest. And at that time, I had already begun to work with people with HIV and AIDS. Okay, so I had a counseling center downtown Orlando that was in the red light district. Now, I was not very popular with the bishop at that time because I was doing what I was doing. I was doing counseling with the prostitute community in Orlando to try to keep them safe, to try to teach them about HIV and AIDS. So I would have groups of folks, and by the way, the prostitute community also included men and young women. And so anyway, I had this counseling program to try to teach them about how to keep themselves alive and the dangers of HIV and AIDS, right? So I'm pro-life. Isn't that what pro-life is? We're trying to keep people alive? So anyway, one day, one of the folks that I had been counseling was a young lady. She knew that I was at St. Margaret Mary in Winter Park. And if you're not familiar with Winter Park is a very ritzy community. A lot of money, a lot of old money, a lot of old wealth, okay? So this young woman decides to visit me at the parish office at St. Margaret Mary in Winter Park. And so suddenly I was in my office, I was working, and the secretary came and she said, "Father, you have a visitor." And I said, "Okay, please send whoever it is in to my office, please." And she says, "Oh, no, you don't understand." I said, what do you mean?" She says, "You have someone here." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Just send them in." And she says, No, Father, you don't get it." And I said, "Obviously, I'm not getting it." So anyway, I said, "Let me come out." And so I went into the reception area. There was this young lady who I knew from my counseling downtown. And so I said, "Oh, Susan, how are you? Come on in to my office." Well, let me put it to you this way. She had just finished her shift. And she wasn't dressed for, normal, daily kind of wear. And so, okay, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to love. And I'm here to keep people alive as Jesus would. So she had some issues that she wanted to talk to me about. I had closed the door of my office, and all of a sudden I hear something on the outside of the door. And so I opened up the door, and here's my secretary with a glass to the door. I guess she was checking up on me, making sure that I was staying alive. I don't know, but anyway. But afterwards, she was very upset with me. And she said, "Why did you bring that person into your office?" Think about what she just said. Now again, I'm not trying to judge her either, and I understand her concern, but why did you bring that person? Well, that person is a person, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So very quickly we can make judgments. Very quickly we can put people in boxes. Very quickly we can categorize people. Very quickly we can depersonalize people. Very quickly we can do things that are not what Jesus would do. Would Jesus turn that woman away? Did he turn away people from the prostitute community away when he was doing his ministry? No. As a matter of fact, he hung out with known sinners. So again, my bishop at the time was very upset that I was hanging around with those people. He was very upset. So he called me into his office. I was getting a reprimand. And I listened very respectfully. And at the end, he said, well, what do you have to say for yourself? And I said, I have nothing to say. And he said, well, why are you hanging around with those people? And I said to him, I said, Bishop, with all due respect, Jesus hung around those people. That's who we are called to be, is to be like Jesus, right? And he said, well, that's not what I mean. I said, well, I don't know what you mean then. See, ministry is to God's people. And every person is a person of God. Irregardless. We may not like what they do. We may not like where they are. We may not be approving of whatever, but that's not ours, you see. If we are truly Eucharistic people, if we are truly going to revive Eucharist in our lives and in our hearts, if we are going to make Eucharist the source and sum of our faith, that's what it calls for. Jesus calls us to be people who set aside all those judgments, set aside all of those ways that we put people down or discriminate or judge others, and say, no, I'm here to love. I'm not condoning. I wasn't condoning anybody's behavior. That's not what I'm about. I'm not condoning that. I'm not condoning sin. But what I'm doing is loving. I just want to love that person, whoever that person is. So I know that's a long way of saying that, but again, we talked about nourishing, right? I would just ask that you keep asking yourself, how am I nourishing? Am I nourishing myself? Am I nourishing others? Am I allowing myself to be a nourishing person? Nurturing others. One of the greatest things that I've been able to do in my priesthood, especially in these later years of priesthood, as Father Joseph has mentioned, I have had the awesome privilege of working with our younger clergy and trying to be a leader, trying to help form them, trying to be a model for them, trying to nurture their leadership and their ministry. And that's been the greatest gift of my priesthood, is to be able to see these young men grow and become who they are as ministers of God. It's a beautiful ministry, beautiful way for me to just, wow, you know. So I enjoyed being able to just watch the growth and to be able to contribute to that in some way, I hope, that helped them to grow. So again, around the table, we talked about that. Again, we have to face each other, excuse me, and it's also about conversation. Remember, if you got together around the table as a family, you talked. I don't know about you, but when I was at the table with my mom and dad, those were the times that they would ask me, okay, what'd you do today? What didn't you do today? What did you do to get yourself into trouble? Or they would bring up, Sister so-and-so called and said that you did this and this and this in school. And that was the confrontation time. I was accountable. I was held accountable. I don't know how many of us are being held accountable, especially our children today, at a table where you're confronted and there's accountability there, huh? And also there's a time to check in. How's your day? How was your day? You know, when us priests, when we live in a rectory, if we have the opportunity, I like to, to sit around when the guys, we get together, and when we're going different ways, right, different places. When we get together, I say, well, what happened to you today? What was good? What was not? What was your day like? Talk about it, that's... Eucharist is for us as gathering together as people and taking the time and the energy and the effort to listen to what the other person is saying, to be interested in them, to care for them, to nurture them, to be with them around that table, to share that meal. Now, there are times, I have to tell you, that sitting around the table at my home, it was silent. Because probably I was in trouble. But the silence was still communicating. And the silence was still accountability. And the silence was still love. And the silence was still saying, I care. I care enough about you to make you and hold you accountable. And to try to correct or to help you or to guide you. See, those are all things that we take for granted when we come together for Eucharist. How are we doing that with each other? How do we do that as parishioners with each other? How do we look at our brother or our sister who sits right next to us and probably has for the last 15 years, and we don't even know their name? We don't even know who they are. How can that be? I mean, if we're Eucharistic people, then we are to be about saying, hi, how are you? Who are you? What's your name? Tell me about yourself. Get to know people. Young people today say, well, the church offers me nothing. I said, well, have you stepped into the church's activities? Have you, well, no, they haven't reached out to me. But you also have to, it's a two-way street, right? So it's a conversation. It's a relationship. That's what we're talking about. Does that make sense? Okay, so looking at that serving and receiving. Do you know, when I was, again, around the table, we took turns serving the meal. And we took turns washing the dishes. Didn't matter whether you were a girl or a boy. I know I grew up in a very traditional area, very rural, right? And in those days, many boys would not have to do anything that would be girls' work, and girls didn't do guys' work, but guess what? I did it all. I learned how to wash clothes, I learned how to cook, I learned how to do dishes, I learned how to clean floors, scrub toilets, all of that. And let me tell you, as a pastor, that came in handy. I can't tell you how many toilets I had to clean as a pastor. Some of them were unbelievable, let me tell you. So I could tell you stories about them. But anyway, I won't go there. So serving. How are we serving at this table? Are we serving? Do you know we have a difficult time trying to get ministers? Nobody wants to serve. Or very few want to serve. Why is that? I don't have time. I don't want to be committed. I don't want to have to, keep doing this all the time. I have other things to do. I don't know. We're here to serve. We're here to minister. That's what we're here about. We're here to serve each other. So how is it that we can't get enough people to volunteer to serve? That's a problem, right? And it's not just in the church. It's in everywhere. Every place. What happened to that service? We talked about military, right? We call it military what? Service. What are we doing with military service? Who are we serving? Our country. I know when a man or a woman puts on a uniform, and I've said this many times at funerals, we do not know when we put on a uniform whether I will be alive or you will be alive the next day. We take that so for granted, don't we? Huh? We take that so for granted. As a chaplain, I had to remind people, this man or this woman has a uniform. They are making a tremendous sacrifice. We've just had how many of our servicemen and women get killed just in the last day? Okay? They didn't know that day that would be their last day in serving their country and serving us. They gave their lives for us. Are we grateful? Do we acknowledge that? Do we say to these men and women and their souls and their spirits and their persons, thank you so much for giving your life. You gave your life for me. And you don't even know me. You don't even know me. Do you see what that is? That's what Eucharist is. If we really take Eucharist seriously, if we are Eucharistic people, that's how we think, that's how we feel, that's how we see, that's how we live, that's how we minister, that's how we give, that's how we nourish. That's who we are as a Eucharistic people. A couple lessons. Spending time together. How much time do we spend with each other? Everybody's in such a hurry. Wow, we've got so many things to do. I'm retired, right? And I think I'm busier now than I am when I was before I was retired. Anyway, do we spend time together? And then remembering. You know, Jesus brought in this concept of remembering. If you take those two words apart, or the word apart, it's remember. What does that mean? If we have members and we remember them, we bring them back together. So every time we celebrate Eucharist, every time we receive Jesus, we are remembering. We are remembering the Last Supper. We are remembering Jesus. We are making ourselves once again connected and being back together with Jesus and with each other, with one another. That's profound. So that's why we're coming together. We're coming together to bring ourselves back together, to reconnect, to connect deeper, to connect more than what we did yesterday. I tell married couples when I do their weddings, I give them a challenge. And I say to them this. I said, tell me how much you love each other today. This is on their wedding day, right? What do you think they say? Oh, Father, this is the greatest day. We're so in love. We love so much. We love each other so much today because it's our wedding day. And I said, I want you to love each other more tomorrow. And I want you to work on loving yourselves even more the day after tomorrow. And continue to keep trying to love more, to love each other more and more every day, to grow that love. Because if you don't grow the love, what happens? It dies. It's a living organism, if you will, love. We have to nurture it. We have to grow it. We have to take care of it. We have to make sure that it's alive. We have to make sure that love is real and true and authentic. And we have to keep growing it. So we have to keep moving with it, right? Otherwise, it just disappears. Well, sort of. Later on, we'll find out that that's not really true. But anyway. So we are almost at 7 o'clock, believe it or not. So I'm going to stop there for just a few moments, and we've only gone through like 2 slides, but that's okay. That's okay. I have 3 nights. So, by the way, before we started, I gave your IT person there my jump drive, or whatever you call it, and it has a terabyte capability. And I filled it up with slides. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. Before we close, I just want to give an opportunity for you to share anything that you wanted to share, or if you have any questions or comments And again, we're just getting started. So tomorrow we're going to dive even more than we did today, more deeply. Believe it or not, there's a lot more depth to go. But anybody have any questions or comments? Right, absolutely. Yeah, so we always want to refer to Eucharistic part, what we share or that we minister is the precious blood and the body of Jesus Christ, right? So again, we have to keep reminding ourselves, our language really makes a difference. And I'm not just trying to be picky about that. I think it's very important that we keep reminding ourselves, this is who Jesus is. This is what Jesus is. This is what he is to us. It's his body and his blood. Yeah?
I'm having a hard time loving my neighbor, Khomeini.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and he just said, yeah, I'm having a hard time loving Khomeini, the Ayatollah who was just killed. Right. So again, we don't have to like what the person does. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to condone it, of course. But Jesus said, pray for your enemies. Pray for them. Try to love them through prayer. And not for us to determine how God is going to deal with that person, but rather to say, Lord, give this person every blessing that comes from you. See, let God do that work. We try to do it for God, but if we allow God to do what God does, we just say, Lord, Ayatollah Khomeini is in your hands, and I know you love him. He may not be in a place to love you, but I know you love him, and therefore, we don't know. But if we pray and say, Lord, I really want to try, help me to love this person. Sometimes I don't know how you love someone. Sometimes I don't know the answer. But just to pray and say, I want to try to love, even though this person has done all these things, That's what Christianity is. Jesus on the cross. I mean, they put him to death, beat him severely, horribly, killed him. But before he took his last breath, what did he say? Forgive them. They know not what they are doing, forgive them. I mean, Jesus, what an ultimate example, right? What a beautiful way for us to look at our own. It's hard. I'm not Jesus, so I'm a human person. I'm just me, but I try. I'm not always successful. That's why I have to go to confession too. But if we just try, if we just say, I want to try, just to love in whatever way I can. And I know we have to stretch ourselves. That's what Eucharist is. It's stretching ourselves out to say, how can I just try? Does that make sense? Yeah, it's tough. That's what the struggle is about. That's why we have Lent, to really reflect and say, okay, how am I doing? Where am I with all of this? This is a time for us to really check in. It's like being around the table, sitting with the Lord, and we're all facing each other. And the Lord's saying, okay, how was your day? What are you doing? What are you not doing? But it's beautiful. He loves us. He loves us. He always loves us. Did you have something? No. Anybody else have a question or comment or anything before we end? So, yes, Absolutely. He died for us when we were still sinners. Yep. And we're still sinners, still, and yet he still is there to love us no matter what. Yeah. Uh-huh. Right, right. Right, right. Sure. Yeah. And right, right, right. Absolutely, yeah, yeah. That's the ultimate prayer of letting go, huh? Most in need of thy mercy. Yeah, uh-huh. Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. Right, right. Yeah. Absolutely. And what do we say at the Our Father? Forgive us as right, if we're not forgiving, we're saying don't forgive me or forgive me as I forgive. So we're saying to God, okay, you have a limit here. If I'm not forgiving people, then don't forgive me. That's what we're saying. Now, God's going to ignore that and say, I forgive you anyway. It doesn't matter. But, what we're trying to say is, I want to try to forgive. I know that I'm being forgiven. So I know that forgiveness is mine. I know that God gives me that forgiveness. I want to try to forgive as God forgives. I want to try. Again, we're human. We're imperfect. Not an excuse. It's just reality, right? But we try. That's just that language alone, just to say, Lord, I'm struggling with this. I'm having a tough time with this, but help me out here, or you know my heart. I say that a lot to the Lord. I say, you know my heart. I'm struggling with this, but you know my heart. So how about if we bow our heads for just a few moments in prayer? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this night, and we thank you for this opportunity and this time in our lives to open more deeply to the great gift of Eucharist, the body and blood of Jesus, your Son, the body and blood that you have given as a sacrifice for us, that nourishes us and strengthens us, forgives us, and embraces us. We pray that as we go forth tonight and every day of our lives, that we may continue to live the reality of Jesus, to continue to strive to be his followers, to live like him, to give of our lives in love, and to truly let go of those things that get in the way of love. We ask your blessings upon us as we go forth, and upon our families and loved ones, and those we would like to pray for, especially those whom we are struggling to pray for. We ask these blessings as we do with all things, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Thank you. So we'll be back here tomorrow at 6 o'clock if you're able to join us. We also have a live stream option that's going on, I believe. So if you're not able to make us and you'd like to stay with us with live stream, and I want to thank everybody who has been with us on live stream tonight. We're happy that you're here too. So again, tomorrow night at 6 and then Wednesday at 6, and then we will end with a great celebration of God's love. So have a good evening. Thank you so much. Thank you.